Hello! Are you guys ready for how to help students with their word level reading errors? If you have kids who read words like brown and they read it as brown and you wonder what to do, should you just say, oh no, it's brown, or should you say, look at the wall, and you wonder what you should do? Well, tonight is the night. We're in a two-part series on how beginning and struggling readers can typically make just 4 classic errors. 1, 2, 3, 4. And these 4 errors are fairly predictable, so we as classroom teachers, mentors, tutors, homeschool parents can give them the feedback they need pretty easily. It's just a few things that we can give as prompts to get them moving on their way. Welcome tonight for a special edition of Reading Simplified. We normally go live on Tuesdays at 8 p.m., but this week we're going live Monday night. So this is Reading Simplified. I'm Marnie Ginsberg, and our mission here at Reading Simplified is to help anyone who's teaching beginning or struggling readers streamline their classroom reading instruction and accelerate their students' reading achievement. And there's no better way to do that than giving really targeted, specific feedback. Feedback that doesn't just help them with the one word. No, the feedback that actually helps them unlock a lot more understanding about how our code works so that they have a generative skill, a skill that applies in the future. So every time we put a little deposit in our kids' word attack bank, they are going to grow stronger and stronger, and they'll be more and more independent. So these 4 types of errors that we're going to talk about tonight are really important to recognize, to see them quickly, so that your guided reading time or your one-on-one reading instruction is highly optimized, so that you see the errors, you know what feedback to give, and then you're moving right along. Are you with me? So let me know where you are coming in from. I'm going to try to put in a link for you guys of the freebie that I promised you last week in case you haven't gotten it yet. And so I'll put that link in and you tell me where you're from. Right now I am in... Oops, sorry, there you hear me. Now we know it's working. I am right now in Morristown, New Jersey, near Philadelphia. I'm visiting my husband's parents, and we just had a great time celebrating my mother-in-law's birthday. So where are you guys from? Flint, are you in Kingsville right now? And if you let me know where you are and maybe what you teach, then I can probably give you better feedback for tonight in terms of how the things that we're going to see may or may not make a difference for your students. So let me just pop this freebie into the comments. And let me hear from you. Where are you from? What do you teach? Do you see student reading errors that kind of cause you to go, If so, then I am glad that you are here tonight. So we'll dive right into the 4 types of errors after I post this link. There we go. There is a link. Well, maybe it's not in the right place. Let me try one more time. Let me hear where you're from. We've got a quiet bunch. I had some snags when I cross time zones, and different programs catch up with you and some don't. So I thought we were in a program that caught up with me and knew I was on the East Coast like Facebook usually does, but it didn't. So that's why if you think this is coming in an hour later, that's the problem. So, okay, Ontario. Yes, Laura. So thank you for your comment. Let's see. Anna, welcome. And she's in Australia, so she's ahead of us, always ahead of us. Hey, Ma, I'm not sure how to say your name. I'm sorry about that, but we love to have our homeschoolers as well as our classroom teachers. Laura said she saw some success with reading and writing and the Read It strategy she's been using on a daily basis. Yay! Okay, so Read It is a key activity, just one of a handful that we teach here at Reading Simplified. That's all it takes to get kids moving as readers. And Read It particularly teaches how to blend. It's the blend as you read strategy. And we're going to talk about that because that is one of the major errors that kids make. And there you see the link for the freebie that I'm just now going to share with you. Okay, Daisy, welcome, Manitoba. Oh, I can't believe I said your name right. Okay, so this is the freebie that I'm going to go through with you guys. And I went through it last week, but this week we're going to do something very similar. You're going to get more practice at it because we're going to see a different series of errors. So we'll watch the same student, but we'll watch further along in the video. So you'll see more opportunities to see if those errors can kind of quickly be identified by you, and then also if they can, let me see, I don't want this. If you then know how to give the feedback. Okay, so this is what I wanted. All right. So let's show this screen really big. And these can go down, and there we are. So we got frog and toad at the ready, and we've got our 4 errors. Okay, so if you're just popping in, we're going to be talking about these 4 classic errors. Let me make this a little bigger for you. Again, I'm going to go over what we did last week, but I'll go quickly. And if you want to know more, you can go back to further videos in this Reading Simplified Facebook page, and you can see a little bit more depth. Okay, so we've got these 4 types. Now, there's going to be a quiz, so pay attention, and maybe you'll want to make notes if you don't have this printed out immediately. Okay, so these are the 4 types of errors. The first one is guessing, just random guessing. So the student is reading, the bear walked across the road, and the student says the bear walked across the street. Okay, so that makes sense in the context, which is great, but road and street don't look anything like each other, so they obviously didn't look at the print, right? Or maybe this is sort of a slip-up of a misidentification. Last week we saw the first grade student that I was working with. He saw the word of and he read it as from. Very easy to intermingle high-frequency words like that. They both have an F. It was just kind of a neural glitch. So that kind of error, whether it's guessing based on context, guessing based on the first letter, or just having some sort of brain switch that causes an error to come out, how would you deal with it? Well, first, you just want to tap the word again. Get their attention on it. Try not to say much. Tap the word. And maybe you need to cover up all but the first couple letters in the word, and then zero their attention in on that. Or maybe you want to tell them, well, that makes sense. Like, yes, the bear could have crossed the road, but it says the bear crossed the... So look at the word, don't guess, because you really want those eyes on print. That's much more important than their ability to use context, because using context is by and large fairly natural for most of our readers if we give them regular feedback in the context of guided reading. If we don't let them kind of drown and never give them help, then they will search for meaning 99% of the time. Our kids will do that. So I find that I don't have to teach that very much unless a kid has not been given much teacher feedback on their errors, and they kind of lose hope and they just kind of guess randomly because they've abandoned all hope. But generally, once you get in the context of a Reading Simplified instructional setting, then those kids don't make those kinds of errors. So, okay, that's number 1. And then blending difficulty is the other one. And that's what Laura was talking about, how her kids have moved along because they're blending better. Well, what if they don't blend it? They look at the word track and they say tack. Well, this is where you whip out your card with a little notch. You cover everything but the T, R, and you say, well, put those 2 sounds together. So they try to get the ready, and then you move it a little bit over, and then you say, now add the next sound, and they come up with tra, and you move it again, and they say track, and that is how you help them with a blending problem. We'll see this in action, so don't worry if it doesn't make sense. And if it's a 2-syllable word, then you just cover up, or 2 or more syllables, you just cover up the first syllable, then you cover up all but the first syllable, then you cover up all but the first and second syllables, and so forth until they've put the sounds together. All right, Katie. Yes, that's you. You're working on the blending. I know you are, and I'd love to hear how it's going with Zach. Hi, Chris. Welcome. Okay, so our third error in our 4 classic errors that we're talking about tonight, which is a review from last week and an expansion. We'll see more footage of kids' errors and how to give them feedback. The other one is, what if this child says something, they just don't recognize the phonics information? So there's a lot, for instance, of tricky vowels out there. Maybe they're looking at the OA and they say ah, or maybe they say ooh. all fairly reasonable choices for beginners. The best thing to do, first of all, is just tap between the O and the A, or underline the O and the A, and see if they can figure it out. If they can't figure it out, then you say, well, what else could this be? Again, that would be some low level of feedback. Let's move this up a little bit here and increase the size. We're on number 3. And then if they still can't get it, or you're pretty sure that it's just too hard for them, then go ahead and just tap it or underline it and tell them, this is O, try it again. So that's what they do with the unknown phonics information. Say they're looking at the O by itself, the letter O, and it could be ah or it could be O. Right? If you've done they can't figure it out, and you said, what else could it be? And they can't figure it out, well, then you can just say, well, this is ah, or this is O. So give it to them, but you don't give them the word. You just give them the littlest amount necessary. Okay, so we've got 3 types of error so far. We've got the guess or the whiff. We've got the blending problem, that's number 2. We've got 3, the unknown phonics information. So those are the numbers we're going to use for our little quiz, okay? So keep that in mind. And the 4th one is just putting the flex-it strategy into action, which is kind of a summation of all of these. The flex-it strategy is simply kind of like it sounds. You flex the sounds that you hear in the word. So if the student has come across the word brown, and they say brown, well, the student has to pull out the O because that's not making sense, and they have to plug in ow. And so they had to flex that sound and search for something meaningful. So, no, brown doesn't work. Brown doesn't work. What else could it be? Oh, brown. They're playing with sounds. And if you guys got my email today, you may have seen that this is something that we do even as grown-ups. When we come across a strange word, does anybody remember what that strange word was in my email? It's like syzygy, I think. You know, it could be syzygy, it could be syzygy. You flex it, you play around with the sounds. And so it's not that the phonics information in that word is unknown to me. When I see a Y, I know it can be I know it can be E, I know it can be yeah. So I just don't know what that word, what it's supposed to be like in that word. So I have to play around with the sounds. So you would do some of the same things you've done before. Tap it, maybe they can figure it out just with that little cue. Oh, this is the thing that's wrong, maybe the Y. Let's tap the Y. Or you could say, what tapping? What else could this be? And then you could just give it to them. Oh, try with the syzygy. It'd probably be try right here as I would tap the Y. And then sometimes you do want to draw their attention to context. If they just kind of blaze through and you know that they could know better, then check that. Okay, so you're ready for the footage? You've got your 4 errors. And let's watch the footage of a little first grade boy who's learning to read. He's doing great, but he still makes mistakes. He still needs help, of course. So we are going to help him and watch how we give the feedback. So what we're going to do is quiz you with what type of error he's making, okay? So let's go. This is a Frog and Toad reading that he's doing. See if I can fast forward. Okay, here we go. Frog and Toad. When he reads something and he makes an error, I'm gonna stop it and see if we can guess which number it is. Okay.
The closet and pet.
That's a weird.
Put.
That would make sense, but in this word it's
Put.
Okay, so he said put. And he said one other thing, and finally he came up with put. What type of error is that? Was it guessing? Was it blending problems? Was it unknown phonics? Or did he need to apply the flex-it strategy? And sometimes the tricky part about this is it could be more than one. Okay. Anybody got a guess? So notice the pencil is there. That's really trying to keep his eyes on the print. He skips lines a couple different times in this video, which shows me that he really could use that support. Okay, Daisy thinks it's 3. I've got to agree with her. Anybody else come up with that? The little boy probably didn't have the phonics information, at least for that word, because put is odd, and you need to flex it too. That's right. Both of these are in play here. So usually, of course, in the CVC word that looks like put, it would be put, but that's not a word. So the child needs to try a different sound, and I think I gave it to him, Or maybe he figured it out. Either way, somehow he had to flex it and drop the sound he expected, and put in the to make put.
He took his clothes out of his closet and put them on.
Then he crossed out get dressed. Toad put the list in his pocket.
Nice.
He opened the door and walked out.
He walked out.
Into
Yep.
the morning.
He walked out into the morning.
Soon Toad was at Frog's
Yeah.
forest.
That's a good guess. He was at Frog's.
All right, what did he do when he saw front? He said forest. Which kind of error is that? He's trying to make sense of it. The letter combination he doesn't recognize. Which type of error is that for that little guy? Is it a guess? Is it a blending problem? Is it unknown phonics information? Or does he need to put the flex it strategy into play? By the way, I forgot to say this earlier, but I have a fun prize for you guys tonight. So there's the freebie that everyone gets. But if you tag a friend, someone you know who teaches reading to beginners or strugglers, tag them so they can get this as well. And if you tag them, I will send you a fun prize. So we've got some answers. Let me show you the prize after I affirm these answers. Okay, so Daisy believes it's a 1, and I've got to go with you on that. And then, hey, May, I also agree that he's going to have a blending issue just in a second, but first he's just guessing pretty much based on hearing the FR in his head. And Katie also is a 1. So I think all three of you are right. Let's get into his response, and then I'll show you the freebie that I'm going to give to everyone who tags a friend tonight or in the replay.
Front. Front.
That's what it sounds like. But
Front.
that's not a word. So what else could this be? He was at
Throat.
Frogs, and
Frog.
it's in this word. It's weird. It's So try He was at Frogs. Front.
Door.
All right, so there were a lot of errors there, and that's normal. You should expect a lot of errors, but I kept having him work at that word because he wasn't discouraged. Now, sometimes the kids get discouraged, they're tired, or they've made so many errors, or they're just not a type of child that can handle a lot of errors. He's not having trouble. He's not frustrated. So I kept pushing him and not giving him the word. I never said front. Did you notice that? He had to do all the work. So he first had to blend, and we helped him blend with the notch card. And then he came up with front, which is a reasonable guess for the short O in that combination, a CCVCC word, very reasonable. And so I tapped, because the second error was then, well, that O, it should normally be but our tricky language makes it so I tapped it to try to give him the opportunity to apply the flex it strategy. Can he switch to And I gave him a little bit of coaching, but it was still hard for him. So finally I backed down and gave him more coaching by pointing at it and say, well, this is And that is very classic with those beginning or struggling readers, that we have to give a series of triggers to get them over it. And what I want to point out here, if you haven't been giving this level of minutia to your readers, you may feel like this is overkill. But what I want to encourage you with is that the work that he was doing to read just one word, front, was really not so much about the word front. He was learning how to pay better attention to print. He was looking to be reading left to right. He was improving his blending ability. He was improving his flexit ability. And he was learning that the O in front is So all that was happening. It's not just the one word. So that's why I'm trying to kind of preach at us all that when we have that hard work of giving specific feedback over and over again, we think this may be just a little too irritating, and we may be a little too tired of our kids' errors. It's actually a huge investment way beyond the one word. We are training their brains to attack unknown words, and he will get stronger and stronger almost with each page. Now, a struggling kid who is going to be slower, maybe they won't get stronger with each page, but it'll become with each book. So don't get discouraged when you are wanting just to give the kid a word. And I'm not saying that I'm not going to give the kids a word. I certainly do. But when they're confident, when they're positive, when they're motivated, when they haven't been working for 45 minutes plus, then it's good to put them through the paces, make them do the work. This, Katie, this little boy, this is just from a week ago. He is right now, in first grade. So I would say if he's able to read Frog and Toad, this would be late first grade because he's needing a lot of my help. So Frog and late first grade could be, Frog and Toad could be late first grade, early second grade, kind of depends on your district or your community. But since it's far from independent, but there's a lot that he's doing pretty successfully. Okay, so are you ready for the for fun prize? Let me show you that prize, and then we'll get back to some. Okie dokie. So let's see where the prize is. This is just for folks who are going to tag a friend. Okay, so we've got these word building cards. They can be done as sheets, or you can cut out each little square. And your beginners who are working on the CVC or further CVCC or CCVCC levels can do these types of PDFs. We've got over 5 PDFs that you can get as a freebie if you tag someone. I'm going to give them to anyone who tags a friend. Here is an example of the CCVC level. This is just a fun little game for those of you who are willing to share these ideas out with your colleagues. Anyone who is a teacher that teaches beginning reading or struggling reader may be interested. So think about that. Whether you're watching this live or sharing it later, this is the freebie that you will get if you tag a friend. Okay, now back to our young student. And if you have any questions, please let me know. Okay, so let's see if we can find the video again. Oh, I'm afraid that I might have.
Good morning. Toad sat in bed. Your turn.
Okay, here we go. He put the list in his pocket and he walked out into the morning and he worked on front, right?
Uh-huh.
Let's see what his next
That's
word
what it
is.
sounds like. But that's not a word, so what else could this be? He was at frogs, and it's in this word it's weird. It's so try He was at frogs front
door.
Nice.
He took the list from his pocket and crossed out "Go to Frog's house."
Is he feeling a lot of accomplishment with his day? You're doing great.
Toad knocked on that.
He knocked
at the door.
Okay, so he said Toad knocked on the door. Which one is it? Error 1, 2, 3, or 4? Guessing, blending, unknown phonics, or applying the Flex-It strategy wrong. And then why I didn't really say much. He's reading a lot of these high frequency words right, but he's just kind of going in the flow with the context. He was probably looking at the word door and his eyes just glazed over the at. So what kind of error is that? It's very common for those high frequency words because the kids are kind of bracing for the hard words to come and they just plug in something that makes sense because that's right, Daisy, he's making a guess. Okay, so when they do the guess, you try to give as little feedback as possible because they can figure it out themselves. That's right, Jaime. Toad knocked at the door, so I just tapped and he resolved it. And I didn't talk too much because I want to keep him moving. I want to get as many words in as possible. Right, that's right, Katie and Anna. Absolutely, guys.
Hello, said Frog. Look at
Same
my
error, right?
list of things to do, said Toad. Oh.
Oh, said Frog.
Said Frog. That is very nice, Toad.
That is very nice. And he stops. Toad said,
my list is...
Okay, so I blurted in there more reading words than I normally would. First, because O is just kind of not a very common word. We don't really see it. So I just wanted to give him the inflection. Oh, said Frog, so then he would know what that was. And then the same thing with he ran over that period. That is very nice, Toad. So that's why I read over it, kind of giving the model for it. So because the words in this section, I'm not worried so much about him not knowing how to read. That is very nice. Or Toad, because I've seen him read comparable words. So that's kind of why I'm not giving him hard work right now, because I think more of the issue is his understanding of punctuation and fluency and that oddity of the word O. All right, so let's get back to, we'll probably see more classic errors though in a second.
perfect.
Me.
You just figured that one out.
We will go for a walk. Right, said Frog. I am ready.
Good friend. You didn't know what was on the list.
Another thing I wanted to point out is he's doing really well. He's not particularly struggling. He's maybe at grade level, or maybe ahead. So you may be working with a kid who's going to not perform as well as he does. Don't let that deter you. The same series of types of feedback will be what you do. You just may have to give more feedback, and maybe instead of just one or two types of feedback, you might give up all four for one word. And then also, if the student is missing every other word, then you might read more words for that student. So you watch their energy, their discouragement. If they're staying up and positive, then you can keep asking them to work hard. So this being just a first grader and being a certain way is not as important. Don't take back too much information from that. Take more about how to give the feedback for the errors, because this very same sequence of errors and this sequence of feedback I've given to 15-year-olds and fourth graders. So when they make mistakes, and hopefully we'll get to a multisyllable word in a minute, they need the same type of error support, okay? That's a great question. Katie wants to know, is he able to recall the story? Is he retaining it or too focused on the reading aspect? Well, what's interesting about this is that he laughs and uses expression. So I didn't actually ever ask him, because it was his bedtime. He was visiting and he needed to get to bed, so I didn't ask him a lot other than get this video. But what I could see was he was laughing and he used inflection that showed that he understood the intent of the author. So I deduced that he understood it quite well. But that's a very good question. Then when you zero in and there's that much work on decoding, is the brain able to comprehend? So absolutely, after most reading exercises, and sometimes even after one page, you can ask for a quick summary. I think that's really important after almost every reading episode to say, okay, so pretend I wasn't here, tell me what happened, and ask for the brief summary. And if they can't do it, you do it and ask them to create it again after your model. So that's super important. But a lot of the times, if they get the inflection and the humor, or they answer some little questions about, oh, that's really silly, then you can tell that they're comprehending it. But be on the lookout for that, because this is laborious stuff, slogging through words like this. Not just for us, but obviously the students doing the hard work. Okay, let's check for the next error.
Frog and Toad went out on a log walk.
They went on a what log?
Okay, so he did on and he said out, but he fixed that. That would be a guess. Just tapped, and that figured it out. Now, when he says long, and he says log for long, what type of error do we have? Is that a guess? Is it a blending problem? Is it an unknown phonics information? Or did he need to apply the flex it strategy? So we're talking about 4 classic errors if you just popped in, and he just said log, and it should be long. So what kind of error is that, you guys? Let me hear from you. So, wonder what the teacher's going to do to give feedback. If you're just popping in there, you can get this free guide on how to help kids with the 4 types of classic errors. You get it in the link above as a freebie. Okay, so Daisy thinks it was guessing because he maybe looked at the beginning and the end of the word. I think I can see that, but then there's so much similarity between all the letters and what he did say. I think it's pretty close to guessing. And Katie thinks it's the unknown phonics information. So I can see where you're both coming from, and I do think it's more about the unknown phonics information because the NG, he's not really been taught that or doesn't know it deeply enough to kind of come up with it automatically. He sees the LO and the G, and he just kind of moves on. He went on a log, and actually, doesn't that make sense? Frog and Toad went on a log. Doesn't make sense to you guys because you know what the next word is, but his eyes probably haven't gotten there yet.
Long. This is just, it's kind of in your nose.
So I just gave him the
long walk.
Walk.
Mm-hmm.
Then Toad took the list from his pocket and
2 chunks.
Again.
He took the list from his pocket.
Again.
Okay, that is a classic error for the multi-syllable word. Why was it hard? And how did I help him? Let's see. Maybe not why was it hard, but what kind of error is that? He said, what did he say at first? He didn't say again. He just kind of said a. So we really didn't know what he was going to say. So I covered it because I thought it was a blending problem. He didn't know how to blend the 2 chunks together. So I wanted him to see where they were broken up because he could have been working on ag. But once he came up with A, then I revealed just the A, and then I turned it and then revealed the gain. Now, gain is the way it looks, but then we say again, but I was hoping that he would do that, flex it in his head, and for the most part, he did. So that's how you handle 2-syllable, 3-syllable, 4-syllable words. You cover up all but the first syllable, get them to enunciate that, and then you ask them to add it onto the 2nd syllable, and then the 3rd syllable, and the 4th syllable. And so that works with kids of all ages.
He crossed out take
walk
with Frog. Just then there was a storm.
That's a good guess. Let's check the sounds. There was a
strong
nice
wind.
Okay, that's a classic one. What type of error? I really want you guys to get that. What type of error was that? Hey, Anna, glad you're here. We're talking about the 4 types of errors. And so this little boy, was he guessing? Did he have a blending problem? Was it unknown phonics information? Or did he need help applying the flex-it strategy? What do you think when he was trying to read the word strong, which notice has that NG and that ONG at the end that we just worked on with long? So what do you think was his error type? Number 1, 2, 3, or 4? I think at the beginning he was just kind of playing with the sounds. There were too many of them. STR is hard because it's hard to blend. And so that's what I think this error was. I think it was a blending problem. And so that's why the card and the revealing of the gradual blend as you read technique was so helpful. Okay, we'll do a couple more, and I'll remind you of the prizes.
It blew the list out of Joe's hand.
Oh, no.
The list blew
What's the first sound?
high up.
Yep, the list blew high up.
Okay, so what's the problem with high? He kind of looked at it. He didn't know what to do. I'm assuming that he doesn't know what IGH is. Obviously, it's been underlined before for another student. And so that is unknown phonics information. So then I didn't just tap it because he was looking at it for so long, and it's also really hard for kids at his level. So I just gave it to him, But I could have also said, well, try, what else could this be? Or try a sound at least for it, because he was just kind of stopped. But when they're completely stopped, it's usually the cue for me as a teacher that I want to give it to them. Now, Katie says that Lively Letters teaches as roast, very impressive, reversal, omission, addition, substitution, or transposition for the unknown phonics and the blending section particularly. That's right. You can, when they're blending, there's a lot of different things that they can do, but mainly I don't want you to worry too much about what they did wrong, as long as you know, this was a blending problem. And let's pretend this is my word. Let's focus in on the beginning of that word and then gradually reveal it and have them blend as you read, so that they can do the blending trouble themselves, the blending hard work. Oh, good. Yep. You're right, Daisy. It's cool to get more and more information about how this reading thing works. So, okay, a couple more, you guys.
Into the sky air.
Good fix. Uh-oh.
Help, cried Toad. My list. It's blowing away. What will I do without my list?
Good. What's going to happen?
Hurry, said Frog.
Hard word.
We will run and catch it. No. Shout.
Okay, so he said shoot. He's stumbling on it. What kind of air do we have there, ladies? And maybe any gents? A guessing error, a blending error, unknown phonics, or applying the Flex-It strategy. He's got to do the latter, because he's kind of playing around with the wrong sound, right? So he's reading shouted as shoot or shut. And what does he not know? There's a lag with Facebook, so I got to give you time. Daisy thinks he's got to apply the Flex-It strategy. Absolutely, I totally agree. And he's got to apply the Flex-It strategy because fundamentally he doesn't know something. He doesn't know, that's right, hey Mal, and he doesn't know the phonics. He doesn't know that OU is ow. So that's why I not only tapped it and underlined it, I gave him a few seconds, as you suggested, Daisy, to apply the Flex-It strategy. But when he was taking a little long, and it was a long session already, this is like a 16-minute video for the total, so I just wanted to give it to him. So I just underlined it and said, try ow. So notice I'm not telling him the word shout or shouted. I'm just giving him the one piece of information, ow, that he needs to know to figure out the word shouted. And so maybe he'll learn OU as ow. He'll definitely learn how to flex a little better. He'll learn how to blend the sounds a little bit better, and he might learn the word shout. So a lot of things are happening, even though it's just one simple word. The interaction between the teacher and the student is still very powerful, and putting in all those deposits for their word-to-text skill. Thanks, Michelle. Yes, you guys are all over it. This is kind of complex. Oh, cool. Krista, you're bringing in some teammates. I love it. Thank you.
Right, no shout.
Shouted Toad.
And that's the blending problem with the two chunks. And that's how you just cover one chunk and cover the other chunk. And that's how they attack it.
I cannot do that. Why not? Asked Frog.
Two chunks?
Because...
Okay, so we don't really know what his problem is there because he didn't say anything. He was just kind of completely stuck. But because is a hard word. Yes, wait, I'm so glad you're here, Daisy. So that's why I covered up the first chunk, or revealed rather everything but the first chunk. I'm stumbling over my words. I covered up the second chunk and revealed the first chunk so he could see the B, and he articulates B, and then he looks at the second part of the chunk and he says cause, and then if he had trouble putting them together, I would say, well, what did you have first? You had B, and now put cause with it, because. So that's blend as you read with two chunk words. It would work the same way with 3 chunks, 4 chunks, etc. Okay. So we've taken longer than we normally take because those of you who are on here, I know you're really concerned about how to get those kiddos even better with over those humps of decoding problems. So thanks so much for hanging with me. If you didn't find out already, that if you go to one of the comments, you'll find a link to get this freebie about 4 classic error types. And also, if you tag a friend to this Facebook post, either now or in the replay, I would be pleased to, I'll send this to you via Messenger, because that's the only thing I would have immediate, for sure, access to if you have been commenting on this Facebook page. These are little word building activities for beginning or younger readers. You could put little cards in here. You could cut these little squares, rectangles out and use them as cards. And we've got a series of them, not just this one, but several for the CVC level, several for more advanced short vowel levels. So that is a fun freebie. If you comment, I will be pleased to share that with you. Okay, so thanks for tuning in, and thanks for catching me on the special time and day. And be sure to like this Facebook page so you can get more free trainings like this. And let me know if there's something that you want to hear from me, because I want to serve you. So please give me a comment via the Facebook or email, and I would love to do something just to serve what your interest, because that's why I'm here. And also keep remembering to tag a friend or to share this out. All right, Katie and Daisy and Payma, you guys are most faithful. And oh, great, Daisy, I'm so glad to hear that. Bonus points for Krista. All right, so I'm going to be signing off. Next week, we should be back at our regular Tuesday night, 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Awesome, Daisy and Katie. Feel the love, you guys. Helping out your teammate is priceless.